Hey, what's up, y'all? Shiro Fujioka, aka Vulture Controller, checking in with my first of many music instrument reviews. And before we get into this review, I just wanted to kind of bring you into my head and share my perspective on why I'm doing music equipment reviews and what I want to specialize in. You know, I don't want to be one of those influencers that just kind of gives you gas and influences you to buy the flavor of the month, you know, based on popularity or, you know, just getting geeked out because it's new and you want it. I'm more of an artist / influencer. You know, I'm very prolific. I produce a lot of music. I release albums, you know, on vinyl and for streaming. And I also compose music for TV, film, and video games. So when I buy instruments, you know, it's pun intended, it's a sound investment. And if I can influence my viewers to do anything, is to invest in themselves, you know, and invest in these instruments to assist you in actually creating music and sharing that with the world, not just, you know, sit in your studio and collect dust and you know, just look cool in pictures. You know, I want to influence people to actually be creative with these instruments. So the perspective that I'm coming from with my reviews is more from the perspective of showing you the long-term use of these instruments, you know, instead of like just making a video the week something comes out and then you go back on my channel and you never see it again. Like if you go on my channel, like any music equipment that I've purchased, you'll notice I'm still using years later. So I want to do, you know, a more, I would say at the least, I want to review stuff that I've had for at least a year. But like, for instance, what we're going to be reviewing today is one of my favorite FM synthesizers, the Digitone. I've had this for 4 years, you know, so I feel I can give you a very good review on what it's like, you know, to first get an instrument and why I choose them and why I select them in the first place, but also give you a year to date on how it's been active, you know, in my musical growth, how I use it in projects, and showing you more the value of these instruments, you know, so you can see the value per dollar with these instruments and how they can grow with you in the long term. So yeah, let's get into it. So to start off with, I'd like to speak about why I chose the Digitone. And first and foremost, I think the first reason that we're drawn to an instrument, of course, is what it sounds like and the sound quality. So I really like the sound quality of the Digitone. And you know, I was a big fan of FM synthesis. I love the sound of the Yamaha DX7. It has, you know, a very distinctive sound and its own sonic signature. And I think the Digitone has carried on in that tradition where it definitely can get into the same sonic territory as something like a FM7, but it also shines on its own because it's like kind of like a hybrid FM synthesizer, because, you know, you have the, you know, 4 tracks, you know, which is really great for creating compositions, but also you have some subtractive synthesis elements, you know, like having the low pass filter and overdrive and stuff like that, and the effects, you know, all these things really help it have its own sonic signature and you know, like kind of that special character that you look for in an instrument. And most importantly, it's paired with the Elektron sequencer, which is one of the best sequencers on the market. You'll notice a lot of new manufacturers are kind of reading out of the playbook of Elektron and the way they make sequencers. Along with the chassis being sturdy, the next thing that I usually look for is the feel, and I like the way the buttons feel. You know, it's not they're not like pads. They're definitely buttons. They have just enough resistance on them that it feels comfortable to play when you want to, like, you know, use the actual instrument to play music. But you can also, you know, hook something up like a beat step or a MIDI controller to control it. But you know, as is out the box, I think it's great, and I would say 90% of the time that's how I use it is right out the box. I usually don't use a controller or anything. And I'll get into the backstory of why I chose the Digitone. At the time, before I bought it, I was strictly modular. and I had 2 modular cases, really large modular system, a 24U system. I had a big giant case and then a small 6U case, and that's what I used to perform live shows with. And it just started to become a daunting task, not only patching and unpatching, because it was 2 separate cases. So I'd build a patch, and then like part of the patch I'd have to break down because they were interconnected. So I'm like making little post-it notes on my patch cable, like this one goes to this one in case number 2, this goes to case number 1. That became daunting. And also just lugging, physically lugging all that equipment. It just wasn't fun at some point. But the reason why I had a large system was I really got into FM synthesis. So, for FM synthesis, you're going to need 2 oscillators to make a FM voice. So, I had basically the way my modular was set up. I had a mixer that had 4 outputs, similar to like the Digitone. And I wanted to have, I would say 3 of those would be, FM voices. So I would need at least 6 oscillators. So you start to take up a lot of real estate in a modular case. And, for all those oscillators, you need modulation, you need envelopes, you need VCAs, I had effects, and it just starts to get a little crazy at one point. But I really enjoyed the tactile nature of modular, and it was making my sets really engaging, because I would perform, at least 30 minutes to an hour modular set for, quite a few years. And so I got a gig in San Francisco and another gig in San Diego. And just traveling back and forth up the coast was fun, but like every gig, I was just like starting to get tired of it. And I wanted to find a way to simplify my process and, still have fun and feel excited about performing. So the Digitone came out, and I'm just the kind of person, I don't jump on things as soon as it comes out. So I waited probably another year and got it that following year after it was first released. And I did some shows, and I had store credit at one of the shows that I did. That was a show at a store that sold synthesizers. So part of my compensation was store credit. And then I also waited until Black Friday, and I got like a Black Friday discount and store credit. So I ended up getting the Digitone and the Digitac the same day. A really great deal. So, that first and foremost, I was super happy about that. But more importantly was the problem that this solved. Because when I really started looking at it, I was like, well, first of all, it's got a great sequencer. I can start sequencing my modular with this, which means it's going to clear a lot of real estate out of my modular case, because modular sequencers tend to be a little on the large side, as far as the amount of HP they take up. But then when it comes to the tactile nature of playing them, they're really tiny, little tiny knobs, and it's not very tactile for playing and performing. So I love the idea of having a sequencer outside the modular. So I was like, okay, first and foremost, it's going to free up tons of space with, it's going to replace my sequencer. And then of course, I was setting up these huge FM patches that had, multiple oscillators. So then I started like taking some of the oscillators out, and then I got to the point where, after really digging in and just being focused and learning the Digitone, I was able to pare down my modular case to just, one 6U system and the Digitone, for sequencing, and also the 4 tracks of voices that I had at my disposal, and also the benefit of being able to save these sequences and like basically having patch recall, because I was using a MIDI to CV module to hook up to my modular. So once my modular patch was made and my sequences were set up in the Digitone, I basically had patch recall, and I was able to do really engaging sets, with a much smaller footprint. I had my small 6U and then a little case for, like a little soft case for my Digitone, and I started having fun again and like really enjoying my shows. Still was able to make an engaging set that would last, 30 minutes to an hour. Solved a huge problem. So I know I'm a wizard and all, but I don't want to like just make this a talking video and bore you with too much abracadabra. So this is the part I want to kind of explain some of the things that the Digitone shines in, and also give you a few demonstrations on how I use it. So one of my favorite things to do with the Digitone when you use it standalone, or even in bigger patches or with other equipment, is first and foremost, you have to use your imagination and sometimes not look at how things are marketed, because if you look at marketing, sometimes they'll reduce something to just being like a groove box or something like that, and a lot of people kind of overlook things like the Digitone because they just think it's a groove box to make like techno or whatever, because that's how it's marketed. But it's a full-bodied synthesizer. Like you can make any kind of music that you can imagine with it. And one of the things that I enjoy doing with it is, first of all, you have to dissect it with your imagination. So I was using it, with my modular, and I wanted to use it to replace a lot of functionality of one of my modular cases. So I started really breaking it down. I'm like, okay, it has complex oscillators. It's got a great sequencer. It's got effects. It's got tons of modulation and tons of patch points where you can really, a lot of the patches that I was making in my modular, I could translate and make on the Digitone. So that was the first thing I started doing, was seeing if I could do that. And once I figured out I could do that, and I have 4 tracks of a nice modular voice, with modulation and effects and all that stuff, I was like, okay, this can totally assist me in replacing some of my modules and having something that's more convenient. So I started looking at the Digitone like a little 4-track 6U modular in a box with invisible patch cables. And that just opened me up on an energetic level and with my imagination versus what I was reading when I look at the manual, or if I look at promo videos or whatever. So that's the first thing. It's you have to really look and see how this instrument can suit your needs and fit in your workflow. So I really like that, because at the time I was still doing a lot of generative patches on the modular. The Elektron sequencer sits in quite well with those kind of things. You can use probability and conditional triggers and all these things, to get those random, generative patches that we all know and love, from instruments like the Buchla and other modular gear. So I'm gonna demonstrate that, and then I'll come back. All right, and we're back. So my second favorite thing to do with the Digitone is to use it like a drum machine. And of course, just the sequencer in and of itself is great for laying down anything from 4 on the floor techno to more intricate IDM stuff to basic stuff like boom bap, house. Sky's the limit. Like I was saying, ambient stuff, generative stuff, it shines on all those. But specifically, I really like using it as a drum machine. And the thing that I like doing is using the ARP, because you can use the ARP in a different way. Like most people, when they think about arpeggiators, they think about, kind of like what we hear in Stranger Things and stuff like that. Shout out to Michael Stein, that's the homie. But you can use an ARP for so many different things in the Digitone. So say for instance, if I'm designing drum patches and I have and percussion patches and I have a hi-hat patch, I'll put the arpeggiator on the hi-hat and then put the LFO, random LFO on volume, and maybe the second LFO I'll put on, maybe I'll put it on panning or something, just as an example. And the thing that's cool about that is that putting that random LFO on the volume for a hi-hat, you get these varying hits. Some of them are loud, some of them are softer, but it's at random, so it gives it more of a humanized feel. So you pair that with conditional triggers, maybe turning effects on some of the hits and stuff like that. You can make a really engaging hi-hat. And then you can also, like for people that make techno, you can also use the ARP to set up your kick drum with the 4 on the floor, using using the arpeggiator. That's something else you can use it for. And then you still have 2 tracks left that you can use to make a bass line. You have another track they can use for chords or stabs, or any kind of like atmospheric stuff to add to that piece. And you can make a pretty engaging techno set with just these 4 tracks in the Digitone. So I'm gonna stop in and give you a little demonstration of that as well. So yeah, that is my 4-year review of the Digitone, and I hope that I help you, make a purchasing decision and help you buy an instrument that you can grow with. If there's anything that I would like to be associated with as an artist, musician / influencer is to show you that I'm not about just pitching gear and selling the flavor of the month. I really am an artist that is building brand loyalty first and foremost, and also knowing that we work hard for our money, and like I said, I want us to make sound investments and have these instruments that we can grow with and continue to use for years to come. There's no reason why this could be an instrument that's just in your studio permanently. It doesn't have to be the kind of thing that you outgrow and that gets obsolete. Which brings me to my last point about Elektron stuff. I really enjoy how they constantly, throughout the years, they've updated this numerous times. So every time they do a update, it's pretty major, and you get a lot of new features and functions. So, this thing has grown with me, and to me, I think that's one of the greatest things about that company is most of their instruments, they support by constantly upgrading and adding new features and functions. And to me, I think that's one of the best things that you should look for when selecting an instrument. So I hope this finds you well. Hope this helps you make some sound purchasing decisions. My name is Shiro Fujioka, aka Vulture Controller. Peace and love.